Hey guys, we are continuing our discussion this week of unit rates. Today we are going to talk about unit rates with complex fractions. I believe you talked about complex fractions last year, but if not, we're going to do a quick review of them. So remember, unit rate is how much of something happens when the denominator is 1, and you can, Matt, I'm here to say hi. You can find it really easily by dividing the numerator divided by the denominator. A complex fraction, write this down, is a fraction in which the numerator, denominator, or both are fractions. So it's like a fraction in a fraction. To simplify a complex fraction, you divide the numerator by the denominator, just like we do when we find unit rates. So if you were to find a unit rate, you just divide the numerator divided by the denominator. Now, in order to solve complex fractions and divide the numerator, so in this one, in our example here, this is our numerator. 3/4 is our numerator, and 1/2 is our denominator. So when we work this out, we work it out like 3/4 divide by 1/2. And you should know how to divide fractions from your math class last year. If you remember, you just switch and flip. So you can write this down if it helps you. You switch and flip. You switch the sign. So instead of divide, you multiply. So we do 3/4 times, and you flip the second one. This one stays the same. So you flip 2, 1/2 becomes 2/1. And then you multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 1 is 4. Simplify that down. You can divide both of those by 2. You end up with 3/2. Or 1 and 1/2. So that is how you solve complex fractions. It's how you divide fractions. Okay, so let's practice. Remember, we're going to switch the sign and flip the second fraction. So on our first problem for practice, we have 3/4 divided by 5/6. The first fraction stays the same. We switch the sign, so we keep 3/4 times, and then we flip the second fraction, 6/5, and then we multiply straight across. 6 times 3 is 18. 4 times 5 is 20, and now we reduce. So we end up with 9/10, because we can divide 2 into each of those. All right, same practice here. 2/5 divided by 1/3. We keep that first fraction. We switch the sign to a multiply, and then we flip our second fraction. 2 times 3 is 6. 5 times 1 is 5. We can make that into a mixed number. So 5 goes into 6 one whole time. We are left with 1 as our remainder. So this is the same as 1 and 1/5. Down here, let's see here, 4/7 divided by 6/5. We keep the first fraction, 4/7. We switch the sign to a times, and then we flip that second fraction, 5/6, and then we multiply across. 20/42. We can reduce that, divide each of those by 2. We get 10. 42 divided by 2 is 21. 10/21. All right. It takes Mrs. Stephan, who is a friend of mine from Louisiana, 1/4 of an hour to run 1.5 miles. What is her unit rate in miles per hour? Remember, to find the unit rate, you just divide the numerator divided by the denominator, which is great, except that we have a complex fraction. So this is asking us to do 1.5 miles in 1/4 of an hour. To make it easier on ourselves so that we can do this a little bit better, I'm going to change this mixed number into an improper fraction. So I multiply 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So this becomes 3/2, or 3 over 2, over 1/4. The reason I put 1.5 on as my numerator is because it says miles per hour. Anytime you see this per, this is telling you the order that you're supposed to write your ratio. So miles has to go first or be on top, and hours has to be on the bottom. So in this one, it's 1.5 miles and 1/4 of an hour. So now we're going to solve this. 3 over 2 divided by 1 over 4. So 3/2 divided by 1/4. I'm just rewriting this complex fraction in a way that's easier for us to solve it. We keep the first fraction. We switch our division sign to a multiplication sign, and we flip the second fraction. And now we just multiply across. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 1 is 2. To get our unit rate in miles per hour, we got to get our denominator down to 1, which all you have to do is divide the numerator divided by the denominator to get that down to 1. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So we are going, so if Mrs. Steffen runs 1.5 miles in 1/4 of an hour, in 1 hour, she runs 6 miles. And you can write 6 miles per hour is how fast she runs. Okay, so some of these on your notes you're going to practice on your own. Some of them we're going to do together. So 2/3 of a gallon per half hour. Find gallons per hour. So do 2/3 divided by half an hour. Write this down. The word half is that fraction, 1 over 2. That is 1/2. So we have gallons per hour. So the gallons has to go on top and the hours has to go on bottom. So this is 2/3. I'm just rewriting this so it makes it easier for us to work with. Divided by 1/2. We keep the first fraction. So we have 2/3. Switch the sign and flip the second fraction. And then multiply. So we have 4/3. If we divide that out, we should get Alex over here, it's sitting on my phone. It'll be 1 1/3, which is 1.33333 repeating. You can round it to, so it's going to be 1 1/3 of a gallon per hour, which is, as a decimal, so 1.333 gallons per hour. Do number 2 on your own. Remember, to find the unit rate, you just divide the numerator divided by the denominator once you do the improper fraction. All right, so we're going to do this one. Go ahead and pause the video and do number 2. So now we're going to do this one together. So we have 3/4 divided by 2/3. I'm going to rewrite it so it's easier for us to work with. So we have 3/4 of a cup of juice per 2/3 cup of sugar. You're going to find cups of juice per cups of sugar. So the juice has to be your numerator and the sugar has to be your denominator. So we keep the first fraction, 3/4. We switch our sign from a division to multiplication, and then we flip that second fraction. And then we multiply across. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 2 is 8. This becomes 1 1/8. All right, that's an 8. This becomes 1 1/8 cups of juice per cup of sugar. Anytime you see this dash like that, that means per. Alright, and then you're going to pause the video and do number 4 on your own. Okay, so while remodeling his kitchen, Arthur paints the cabinets. We're going to practice these together. He estimates that he paints 30 square feet every half hour. How many square feet does Arthur paint per hour? You guys can probably figure this out yourself. We're going to write it out as an improper fraction. So we have 30 square feet per half hour. So we are going to, this is still a complex fraction even though the numerator is just a regular number. So we're going to change 30 into a fraction to make it easy for us to work. Anything can become a fraction if you put it over 1. So we have 30 divided by 1/2. We keep that 30 over 1. We switch the division sign into multiplication sign. We flip the second fraction. 30 times 2 is 60. 1 times 1 is 1. 60 divided by 1 is 60. So Arthur paints 60 square feet per hour. Alright, so you should be starting to get the hang of this. We're going to do a few more examples, and you're going to be working on your own. Alright, so now we are comparing the unit rate of two different things. So we have two containers are filled with water, but they're leaking. Container A, it helps me to draw pictures. We're going to say that this is container A, and this is we'll do container A first. Container A leaks at a rate of 2/3 of a gallon every 1/4 of an hour. And container B is leaking at a rate of 3/4 of a gallon every 1/3 of an hour. We want to know which one is leaking more rapidly. That means faster. So let's figure this out. 2/3 divided by 1/4. How fast is container A leaking? Say the first fraction stays the same. Switch the sign. Flip the second fraction. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 1 is 3. This is 2. Because 3 goes into 8 2 times. And what you're left over with is 2/3. So this is leaking 2 2/3 of a gallon per hour. Alright, let's see how about container B. So we have 3/4 divided by 1/3. Keep the first fraction. Switch the sign. Flip the second fraction. It's a 1. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 goes into 9 2 times. 4 times 2 is 8. That means that there is 1 left over. So this is leaking at 2 1/4 of a gallon per hour. Which one is leaking faster? This one is leaking faster. If you want to compare, so they have the same whole number. If you want to compare 1/4 versus 2/3, you need to find common denominators, which for 3 and 4 would be 12. So let's make a little. So equivalent fraction. 3 times 4 is 12, 2 times 4 is 8, this is 8/12. Whereas here, we can make this into 12. 4 times 3 is 12, 1 times 3 is 3. So if you're comparing 12ths, 3/12 and 8/12, 8/12 is more. If you just kind of know that 2/3 is more than 1/4, then go for it. That's great. But if you don't, go ahead and find those common denominators and compare the numerators to see which one is more. So this one is leaking faster. This one leaks 2 2/3 of a gallon per hour, whereas this is just 2 1/4 of a gallon per hour. Either way, you probably need more different containers. Gotta do. All right. So some reminders. Tasks 1 to 6 for this week are all due on Monday. You'll get new tasks starting next week. So Monday or Friday, depending on when you have me last, will be your last chance to work on these tasks. Remember, you can use all of your notes, including these notes and the tasks, to help you when you take your next quiz. You can keep all of your work in the drawer next to my desk that is labeled with your college. Once you are done with the notes today, you can work together on the tasks with your classmates, but you must be working, and there are no Chromebooks allowed after you are done with the notes. So once you're done with this video, put your Chromebook away and get to work on your tasks. All right, guys.